used to hold it. You do need a dowel chuck to hold it. It's the simplest way to hold it around a piece of wood. It's a 3/8 chuck that's been ground out on the inside, and so that it holds around the dowel without crushing it. If you use a regular Jacobs chuck, you're going to crush the wood, and it just won't work. And this is really the cheapest way to do this. These are, I think, $39.95 at Craft Supply. When you buy those, make sure that the back end of it's drilled, and there's a rod running through here. There's a knob on the end to hold this thing in place. Because when you're turning on this number 2 Morse taper or any Morse taper, and if you get any lateral pressure at all, you get some vibration, that thing will come out. And I'm going to turn this at about 3,000 RPM, and it gets real exciting when that thing comes out. It's also very expensive because it ruins, luckily if it just ruins your chuck, it's not that bad, it's $40. But if it ruins the spindle on your lathe, it's quite a bit more. So make sure that you can use a collet chuck. The only bad thing about collet chucks, they don't hold wood real well because wood's rarely the exact size. A dowel might be 3/8 one day, might be a little big, the next a little smaller. So you end up with a dowel that doesn't hold real well in a machinist type of collet. And this is very easy to get the waste piece out, and so it works really quite well. The only thing that you do need to do is you need to have a cup center in the back. See that? There's a little cup in there that supports the back end of this. Because without that, if you just if you just try to put a tail center into this, you're just going to split the wood. So this cup works just fine. And somebody asked me once how many of these I've turned, and just guessing, I'd say probably somewhere around 5,000 to 6,000. So a fun thing to turn. We gave a bunch of them to the Return to Community thing at the AEW, and somebody told this gal that she says this guy can turn one while the other one's spinning. And I've done that. But the only way that it works really well is if you may have one that's really well balanced and runs a long time. Like I say, I'm going to turn this at roughly 3,000 RPM. This is basically hard maple. Hard maple seems to work the best when I color these pins, because the ink doesn't flow out. But first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this round. I'm using this about a 1/2 inch roughing job. I know none of you move your tool rest when the lathe is running, right? Okay, we're going to put a few grooves in there, because if you put the grooves in there, it makes it a little bit easier for the pin to... And I don't want any smart aleck remarks about my color choice. Also, if you notice that that chuck that's going around, I put a little plug in there, and the reason for that is that way I can cut my dowels a little shorter and they don't bury themselves all the way down in there.
Is that the Dutch in you?
No comment. Is this thing gonna work or not? You say you need some duct tape for this? Safety pins.
Need to kind of tuck it a little more next to your ear, like your ear.
Actually, I'm almost as good as Nickman. I can do this without one.
What?
And you can get carried away with the colors, if you don't know what, some people like to use a color, what do you call that? Circle thing with all the different colors. I just pick colors. If you're not real sure about colors, pick, like team colors of professional teams. They seem to work pretty good.
Do you use any type of marking pen?
I can pass these around. You do need a marking pen that's got, it needs to have a fairly flexible tip. The best place to buy these is at Meiningers or at some of the hobby places. You need something that's got a relatively flexible tip. Sharpies, we tried it, that didn't work. Okay, next we're gonna crank the speed back up. Now you do need to make sure that you get a nice smooth tip on it, because the cleaner that tip is, the smoother the thing will run. I don't do a lot of sanding. The only thing that I really sand is the stem here. And I know a lot of people make the stem that's very decorative. It makes it really hard to spin. The smoother you make this, I think the better it spins. Also, the thinner you can make this thing, the faster it'll spin. There's probably an engineer in the group that can explain that, but I really don't want to hear it. Get it? And when you're tired of spinning this way, you can turn them, flip them upside down. That's the reason I call it both sides. Now, when I make these, and especially the ones that I color up and sell, I do spray a finish over the top of that. It keeps that color in a little bit better. And I use either just the clear coat spray or this master. The only thing this master kind of yellows it up a little bit, but this gives you a little clearer finish. And I do spray both sides of that, so the color stays in a little bit better. Any questions on the top? Like I say, they're really a fun thing to make. Like I say, I've made quite a few. Oh, don't throw these things on the floor, because if you step on them, you're going to go for a ride. Okay, next we're going to make is this bottle stopper. I use the 3/8 dowel. I drill a hole in there and hand me that clamp. Yeah. And it's easiest if you just take a Jorgensen clamp and cut you some notches in it. You can just drill this on the drill press. The good thing about that clamp is still usable for other things besides this. They do make fancy chucks to hold them. I do happen to have one made by Record, who's out of business, I understand. So you just need something to hold it straight up and down. This happens to be round. This is French boxwood that I got, a number of years ago over in Utah. They had these are just little logs, little small round logs. And that's all they really had. I'm gonna put a real small point in there. The only reason I wanna support this is it lets me turn this a little bit quicker. Again, this is only about 1.5 inches or so, so I'm gonna turn this relatively fast. Okay, first thing I'm gonna do, give a real slight undercut on the bottom so that cork slides up against us, it gives a nice, nice fit on there. I'm just using an 1/8 inch parting tool. And basically all this is going to be is a finial. The only thing you do have to kind of keep in mind is there's a dowel runs in there about 3/4 of an inch. So your shades can't be any smaller than 3/8 in the middle. Because of a very large collection of bottle tops that have a different color in the middle. Actually, you know, to laugh about this, but I sold a couple of them. God, that's really interesting. How'd you do that? Also, one of the keys to becoming a good turner, you gotta learn to turn with your mouth shut. Or develop a taste for wood. Again, like I say, right in there you want to be careful that you don't get carried away. Sand this kind of quick.
What kind of wood is that?
It's French boxwood. I'd use English boxwood, but they're just too cheap to let it go.
Hey, watch it.
Yeah, I did. The English are real protective for their boxwood. I don't blame them. If I had it, I wouldn't let it go either. When you're sanding these coves, rather make sure that you kind of roll your paper up so it fits down in there. so that you don't, eliminate these sharp edges that you just created. But we do a lot of damage to a good wood turning with sandpaper. And I don't think I brought any steel wool. Usually I'll sand this to 400. Although this boxwood would probably be, you could help the finish on this quite a bit by sanding this to a much finer finish. And like I say, now steel wool is kind of like rags around a lathe. It can be very dangerous. So make sure that it's small enough and keep away from chucks. Because it gets real exciting when that gets caught in that chuck and flops around in there. Give me that bottle of Holtus, please. That paper towel. Thanks. My favorite finish for all these small projects and pins and things like that is the Qualisol. They used to make a product called Super Rapid Pad, and it was really good. It was very potent. But you could only buy it in a gallon from Mohawk Finishes. But since Beelan bought out Mohawk, they eliminated that product. And I bought some regular Rapid Pad, but that doesn't dry as quickly. And they do sell this here in a variety of other places. It's a padding lacquer. You can use Mylan's Finish, whatever you're comfortable with. The nice thing about this, it dries rather quickly, and you can just keep bringing up the shine till it, you get the shine that you like.
What's your favorite wood?
What's my favorite wood? Free wood. Huh?
Free wood.
That's what I said, free wood.
Oh, I thought you said green wood.
No, not green, free. It depends what I'm doing. Boxwood is a wonderful wood to turn, but it's very hard to get a hold of, and it's rather pricey. I happen to get a couple logs for free for this, so that's why I'm using it for my demo. Otherwise, I wouldn't be.
You ever do any mesquite?
Yes, but the bugs are just horrible. I can't believe that people in Texas aren't smart enough to remove the bugs before they send it up here.
Well, see, in Arizona, we remove them.
Oh, you do? Okay, well then that's good. Here's the cork, and I know some of you turn the fancier the new stainless steel ones. I don't drink, and these don't sell real well anymore, it seems like to me. So I don't really bother with them. Don't make that many of them. I do make a few once in a while. Then I just wait till it dries, and then I take it to the bandsaw, cut it off, and have a big upright belt sander, and I touch it, and I make sure I use a really dull belt, because it turns the end of it black, and people think I use blackwood on it. I'm going to sleep in the front row, because I do have a tendency to throw things. Okay.
Glad that shield's up there.
Huh? Okay, next I'm going to turn the refrigerator magnet. One right here. And I use this serrated dowel or whatever dowel you got, this doesn't really matter. Use the same dowel chuck. Take it out just a little bit, because I do need to cut underneath this, so I'll back it out a little bit. Actually, you can pass this one around if you want. Some super glue would work good on this, wouldn't it?
Hey, you try to take it off, Pete.
Oh, I'm just gonna take it home.
Yell at your
Okay,
wife in the kitchen.
huh?
Yell at your wife from the bedroom to the kitchen, right?
That wouldn't work well around my house. You might be able to do that once, but you probably wouldn't do that twice. Okay, first I'm gonna do is turn this around, and if you look at that magnet when it comes around, normally like on the bottle stopper there, I undercut that inside on the bottle stopper, I mean on this refrigerator magnet. I'm gonna make sure that that goes out, so that the magnet stands proud of the wood. The first couple I made a whole batch of them, you know, and then I put the magnets in and put it up to the icebox and he fell down, because the magnet was back in there too far. So that doesn't work real well. This is a thick piece of tulip wood. Let me explain something, what I did here, and I should have probably done that before I turn this. I start out with a block of wood, and I've got some big magnets, I don't know what size they are, probably about 5/8 or 3/4. But drill the correct hole for whatever magnets you have. And I've used them just 3/8, that's plenty big, and I just happen to have these big ones. So drill that hole first, because this hole will have a little center mark in it, and then I drill the hole for a 3/8 dowel so I can dry this thing. So then we're gonna, we slope this back a little bit on both sides. So when the magnet is in there, it'll sit up here, and the magnet will be the first thing to touch the icebox. That's a refrigerator for those of you not that old. Now, I'm going to use a spindle gouge on this because I do want a nice clean surface on there, rather than just using a parting tool. I'm going to trim this down rough first, and then again, there's a 3/8 hole in there, so be careful with your design that you don't undercut that. Now, the normal procedure is to turn from the tail center to the headstock. But on short items like this, it's really not going to make that much difference. But if you had a larger, longer piece, make sure you turn from the tail center to the headstock, so that you're not driving this piece of wood with a real thin, with a real slender piece over here on this end. this is gonna stick out from the face of the icebox or refrigerator. So make sure you don't put a real sharp point on that and somebody bump into it and end up getting hurt, so. You'd be getting a call from Frank Hazor, so. Again, you wanna make sure you sand this. And I'm gonna sand rather quickly. Do we have any new people here tonight?
Yeah, we've got the folks from Broomfield.
Huh?
The folks from Broomfield.
Oh.
Well, if you would've cut that cove too deep, you'd have a refrigerator funnel.
No, you just have a flying piece of wood. And those of you that didn't make it to Albuquerque, next year you need to get all the way to Hartford, Connecticut. Should have gone to Albuquerque instead, it's a lot shorter drive.
Pete, have you tried any of that, Swiss industrial abrasive, it's like steel wool except it's made out of some sort of plastic?
No, I haven't. Is that the stuff they were handing out down there? In Albuquerque?
I didn't see anybody handing it out there, but it
I got a little piece of it on a sheet of paper.
wouldn't have been on a sheet of paper. It looked just
No, I
like-
mean, there was a little sample of it stapled to a piece of paper. Oh, the stuff that looks like a screen?
No, no, it looks just like steel wool, except that it's not metal. It's, probably plastic or something, and the abrasive is embedded in it.
Oh, no, I haven't tried that
It's
yet.
really good stuff. You can use it wet, you can use it with finish, doesn't rust, doesn't put metal chips in your wood or anything.
Right, one of the things you have to be really careful of, if you use steel wool, and if your final finish is a water-based finish, make sure you get rid of all the fuzz, because if not, you're gonna end up with a rusty, whatever,
This stuff doesn't have that problem.
yeah.
Yeah, you can get it in three.
Plastic Brillo pads.
You can get it from Woodworker Supply.
That's so busy cracking jokes that I forgot to clean this bottom up here. This will go a little faster. And one thing with this Qualisol or any of these kind of finishes, if you don't put the first coat on with the lasers off, then you're not gonna get any penetration at all. This is gonna sit on the surface and wear off real quick. So make sure you put your first coat on with the lasers is off and just, or running very, very slow, so that it, penetrates into it. And then go ahead and polish it up some more. And I can't emphasize it enough, never use a rag around the lathe. This is just a paper towel.
finish on top of that?
No. On stuff like this, I would probably buff it on the Beal system afterwards, yeah, I would use the 3 steps, yeah. But the problem with that is that you really need to wait a day or two, because if you do that too quick, you just burn the finish right off. So be sure you wait a day or two. Fact of the matter is, something I found out in Albuquerque, if you spray a lacquer on something, you better wait about 10 days before you polish it, because if not, you're going to rip that finish right off of that. And that may be some of the problems that I used to use some lacquer finishes on my boxes, but I haven't for years. I use an oil finish on it now. I use lacquer to begin with, and then put the oil finish over it. Okay, a couple of dabs of glue and a magnet. And you can pass it. Just you can use epoxy for this too. It's whatever works for you. Now handle this up right. Don't stick that on any of the metal, because it'll come right out. It's going to take a while to dry. So.
Do you rough that magnet?
Huh?
Do you rough the?
No, and I've not really had any problems with them coming out. I've got a couple on my icebox that have probably been on there 7, 8 years, and they never came off. You can, if you want to, if you're worried about that, you rough up the magnet a little bit on some sandpaper, and then glue it on that way. Couple things about David Springett in Albuquerque mentioned this, and this is kind of one of my pet peeves when you hand something out to the crowd. There's some guys will sit there and look at this for 15 minutes and take 20 pictures of it, and then caress it some more, and then look at it some more, and then the guys that are either one end or the other never get to see it. So, if you want to make love to the thing, come do that later on, please. Okay. All right, I need to change the chuck for that light bulb. And I'll show you, I'll pull this out and I'll show you how I hold this in place.
Lost your ear.
Pete, do you just use CA glue when you glue in the magnet, or?
Yeah, but like you said, you might want to rough it up. A lot of times that works a little bit better. I've never really had too much problem with them. Like I say, the ones of my icebox have been there for quite a few years. So you can rough it up if you want. And I've got this little washer on there. It doesn't quite fit this this lathe right here. It's a little bit bigger, but that fits just inside the chuck on my. Inside the spindle on my lathe, on my little Vic mark, and that works quite well. There's a variety of these type of pens here. Pass that around. My wife bought some at Walmart, and it's like 5 colors come in a little pack, and can't think of the name of it now. But they don't last real long. But if you're just going to make a few of them, they probably work fine for you.
Craft Supply had a bunch of them at Albuquerque.
Yeah, well, they're into that texturing. Roger was. He was just having that. $4.99 a piece. $4.99.
Yeah.
There are $3 at Meiningers. And somebody said they were cheaper in some places, but if you buy them for 50 cents less and spend $3 in gas getting there, you're not ahead of the game. Okay. Meiningers, I think they're around 10th and Broadway, something like that. Huh? 5th and Broadway. And they've got 1 million colors in there. Okay, next we're going to turn is the light pole. And as you can see, this it really does work, see? But anyway, they're relatively simple to make. A number of years ago, Martin Pigeon was in Utah, and he, basically, you have a hole in there that's big enough to receive this little calf thing and pull it through here. And, again, you wanna drill the big hole first, and then drill the small hole. You can pass one of these around if you want. And, you can pass that around too. Okay, I drilled a little bit too big a hole to use my 3/8 dowel, so I'm gonna take a, give me a skew chisel here. That little 1/2 inch skew. Yeah, no, yeah. I'll put a slight taper on this. Now, I gotta do this kinda gently because I don't have a drawbar for this. They're not coming down, are they? Okay, I've got a taper on this dowel, and I've just shoved that into the hole that I've got on the bottom. And I've got a tail center that's got a cone tip, a 6-degree cone tip to it. And here again, you know, there's no such thing as you have to turn this or you have to turn that, so you can do whatever you want here. Always make sure that that clears. Okay. The reason I prefer to dry this on this end with a dowel, I can cut right down into it and not have to worry about my tool. And the only bad thing is on the other end, you have to be a little bit careful. The other nice thing you notice that if it just spins, you just crank it up a little tighter, and it'll bite right back down in there. Now I can use a much smaller cove in there because I've got just an 1/8 inch hole in there. Try not to cut into your tail center, because it does make it, puts little grooves in there. It's also very hard on your tool.
Is that some more of that free wood?
This could be. This is cherry. You got that blue wire? The blue wire?
Did we get those booklets from the AEW Symposium back to their owners? Bruce, Ron? Okay. Should be 3, because one was mine. Okay.
Okay, again, we want to sand this. Again, make sure that if you put detail in it, don't sand it away. Because if you do, you're going to have to bring it back. Somebody told me that these things don't fit in these cardboard boxes that wine comes in, these bottle stoppers, so I guess if you buy your wine in cardboard boxes, you'll have to modify those a little bit.
They don't fit with plastic ones very good either.
They don't? Okay, to kind of break this up, you can decorate this with some burning wire. When you do that, make sure you lightly sand that so it makes it nice and smooth. Thank you. Okay, for this finish here, I prefer to go, one of the problems with that I see with that qualitrol finish on larger items, it dries so quickly, it's hard to blend it all together. So it works well on really small items, but when you get a little bit bigger, I prefer to just use lacquer, the sanding sealer. And then to give it a couple more coats of oil later on. Since people that own this lathe are watching, always make sure you protect the lathe. If you borrow somebody's lathe and they're not there, just go ahead and splash all over it. You can always tell them that's where you got it. chain that'll pull through there?
You may have to take that link off.
Yeah, take the.
There you go.
Does it work on that light?
Yes, it does, see? Okay, next thing we're gonna do is make a door stop. Actually, we're gonna make these two at a time. This is for people that don't have a lot of time. You make two at once. And just pass that blank and the other thing around. I've got matching sets here, and every once in a while I'll do something stupid like this here, you know, and it just will not tighten up, will not tighten up. And I look at it and say, why isn't that tightening up? 'Cause you put it in the wrong end, dummy. I have a habit of talking to myself. These are kind of a fun thing to make. I did this at a show a couple of years ago, and I was selling these for like, I think, $7 or $8. I probably sold 20 or 25 of these things. And but everyone, what is this? It says, what do you want it to be? And they kind of give you a dirty look like. I said, it's a door stop. Oh, well, I gotta have one of those. Start out with a piece of wood that's, I think this is roughly 1.25 inches square, something like that. Doesn't matter, I guess, you know, just whatever size you decide. And I think this is around 11 or 12 inches long, about 10 inches long. Because I'm gonna decorate both ends with a little knob. Now, is that going around? Okay, make sure that the ends are nice and round and smooth. Because if you put a real sharp taper to that, you know, we get it really decorative, and somebody bumps their toe into it, you're gonna get another call from Frank. So, you know, no sense giving that guy any more business. So make them nice and round and even, so that, you know, people put them under the door, that they don't end up bumping their bare feet into it. One of the things that people have a tendency to do, to put this under the door like this, you know, and if you got a veneer door that's, you know, somebody's gonna bump that door, you're gonna chip the veneer. So make sure you put them under the end. That's a solid piece of wood on the end, so make sure you put them on. Plus they're not out in traffic, people bundling into them. But if you got veneer doors, don't stick them on here, because if you pull on that, like I say, you're gonna end up with an ugly mess. Now, I bet I didn't bring a tape measure. I probably have one in there somewhere.
Dollar bill, 6 inches.
How about a 20? Can I borrow one? Can I borrow one? Who's got it? I was a glazer for years, and you know, when we nip off on a piece of glass, you usually just use a matchbook cover over it. And we had a couple of guys that would always use $10 bill, you know, like they were showing off. I said, here, let me borrow that, so I stuck it in my pocket. The guy got all mad, he said, "I don't see the humor in it." Said anybody that loose with their money shouldn't have it anyway. Okay, I'm gonna come in about 1.5 inches on both sides. Holy smokes. I have to change my glasses. I go a little bit further. And I put a mark on this so I know just where to, so these will end up being close to the same size. Okay, yeah, I can see that. Now, there's lots of tools you can use to make this pommel cut. And my favorite tool to use is this 3/8 bowl gouge. And the reason why I prefer that over spindle gouge, it's a heavier tool, you can go off the tool rest quite a bit further than you can with a spindle gouge. And it's a much heftier tool. Okay, gotta go a little bit further. Okay, go a little bit further on this side. Then I'm gonna make a nice square shoulder on there with my 1/8" poly tool. Need to go down there just a little bit further. Now, the beauty of this, you don't have to make both sides exactly the same, because you're gonna part this off, you're gonna cut this on the bandsaw, so one, unless you got a pair of doors and it's gotta be alike. But, okay, and the really nice thing about this, you only have to sand the ends. So don't try sanding this square wood. Also, you notice I got a, I don't know if you can see that, I got a little tray that I keep my sandpaper in. It's a lot easier than just throwing it down and trying to figure out which grit you got later on. So we're doing on time.
8:30.
You cut that down 2 feet, about 400?
Yeah, I'm down to about 400. Okay, I'm gonna part this off a little bit on each side, but not all the way, because obviously this is in the.
Did you sand that square piece before you started?
Yeah, I sanded it. Well, I may not have, but you really should. Or you can sand it now if you want to. The nice thing about sanding it now, you know, you've got a nice hold of it. Yeah, you can certainly sand that beforehand, because you're not gonna do any turning on this at all, so. We'll just go 180 and 220, and that should be good. Now, I'm gonna break these edges a little bit, just so that they're not real sharp.
Have we ever accused you of being real sharp?
Nobody's accused me of being sharp, but that's true. But I was working for a guy one time that was really into race cars, NASCAR and all that. We had one of these NASCAR jackets that must have had 15 different colors. One sleeve was different from the other. Says, hey, Clyde, I said, this is a great idea. I says, I ought to get me one of them, way I can tell my left from my right. He didn't think it was funny. Actually, I should put some, I usually finish these on the lathe, because it's a lot easier than, Again, since the owner of the lathe is watching, we'll be a little bit more careful. Now, I'm gonna show you how to lay this out. Where's that pencil? About that. You take this to the bandsaw and cut that on this diagonal, put this on a belt sander or a disc sander to get a nice smooth surface, and you're done. And that's how you get two for the price of one. And this is really, all this is lacquer sanding sealer. It's diluted with lacquer thinner, half and half, so it's real thin. So the first coat really penetrates down into the wood. And this is this is my base finish for almost everything. Now, I know I get arguments from people, and I know if you don't agree with me, see me later, don't tell me now. People claim that you can't put an all finish over that, and that's not true. The thing you have to be very careful of is that you make sure that all the solvents have evaporated off. And the easiest way to do that is if you can still smell lacquer thinner, it's not dry enough. So once it's completely dry, you can put an oil finish over the top of that. My favorite oil finish is that Sam Aloof poly oil wipe on. Don't use the wax stuff. That doesn't seem to work as well. But it's a great finish. It's a wipe on, wipe on, wipe on, wipe off. And the reason I prefer that, my shop is dusty. I don't have a specific place to do finishing, so I need an easy one that even if dust settles on it, I can buff that dust back off of it with some steel wool between coats.
You won't spray it with lacquer, huh?
No, the only thing I really spray is my birdhouses and the ornaments.
Pete, you wanna explain how you cut that so that you make two things out of it?
Well, I got a diagonal, you just take it on the bandsaw and cut it in two. Try to go real steady, if you weave it like this, it's gonna end up real thin on the end. And I do have a finished one floating around, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay. Next we're gonna do is I always call them weed pot, and the people give me funny looks. They're bud vases. They're not for a middling pot. Pass those around. Here are 3 different samples.
Pete, what was the finish, the oil-based finish you put on later?
It's a Sam Aloof wipe on poly oil.
I don't know here and I don't know anywhere else.
Yeah, I think they have an exclusive with Rockler.
It is.
It's an exclusive with Rockler, so if you want that, probably any kind of a wipe on oil, urethane oil, whatever will work. I like that. The only thing I dislike about it is it comes in about I think it's a pint can, and it gels up really quick, from opening and closing the can. So I bought these regular cans that you can just have a little screw lid on them, and I pour it into there. And I know it says on there that do not thin this down, but I do anyway. I figure once I bought it, it's mine, do with it what I want. But I do thin it down some with a little bit of paint thinner. And I think the biggest problem is people use really cheap paint thinner to thin things down, and they're not very pure, so, use a good grade, use a quality brand, don't use some junk that you buy at Home Depot.
Do you use a friction, when you wipe it off?
No, I just wipe it on and wipe the excess off.
Not friction?
And it just lets it build up. I have to do that off the lathe, because I already got 6 lathes, and my wife said, you're not buying any more lathe. If they leave it on each lathe, I'd have a lot of lathe, which I do anyway, but that's besides the point. Okay, this is a piece of aspen. I try to find the metal. If you don't trust your eyes, get a tape measure. These are some bud vases. Yeah, just pass them around. Again, start these out between centers. Okay, now there's lots of ways to turn this around. I'll show you some of them. How much time you got, a half hour? You got
25 minutes.
Okay. You can use a roughing gouge, spindle roughing gouge, because this is spindle work, the grain's running in this direction. The problem with roughing gouges is they're very expensive. The Thompson was it 195?
Yeah.
For the big one?
Yep.
It's got a great big shaft on it, it's a beautiful tool. Man, that's a lot of money to pay for a tool that will only do one thing, to turn something square into round. I've got several of them. I've got them up to, I think it's 1.5 inches. I didn't bring the really big ones, but this is probably my favorite size. The small one isn't all that great, but these are rather expensive, and that's all they're really good for turning. Now, if you want a bowl gouge, you can do virtually the same thing with a bowl gouge, and I'll do part of it with that. When you got bark like this flopping around, it's a good thing to wear a full face shield. You can see it works really quite well. I mean, it gives you relatively rough cut. but, you know, it works just as well as the spindle roughing gouge. So, one of the reasons I like to use the spindle roughing gouge is, well, for one reason I got them, and the other reason is they're really easy to sharpen. Probably the simplest tool to sharpen. Okay, next thing we need a quarter-inch parting tool there. Quarter hole. I'm gonna put a tenon on this on one end so it'll fit my chuck. One of the things you want to be very careful of is you don't make this tenon so long that it bottoms out on the bottom of your chuck. Make sure that this bottom here, and you can see that this bottom here does not sit all the way into the bottom of the chuck. Make sure that you got a nice clean surface there. And my chuck has a little bit of a rim around the outer edge of the faceplate of the. It has a little bit of a ridge here, so I put a little tiny ridge in there so that'll bite down into there. It helps keep that from coming out. Okay, now I'm going to do some of my rough shaping. And again, I'm just using the bull dot. Now, the reason I like to do some of the rough shaping now is you're never going to have a stronger hole than you have right now. That's just the way it is. So you might not get rid of a bunch of the extra wood right now so that you don't have to be quite so delicate once it's in a chuck. Because you can't be that aggressive when it's in a chuck. And I've got these calipers set to the size of my chuck. Actually, I probably ought to check that because, yeah. I've got these set and I put a dab of glue on it so that you can't move these, so they should always be set correct for me. Now, you notice I put the tenon on the back end because that's the way I'm going to put it back in the chuck. I don't like flip-flopping that back and forth because now I can use the stale center and the market center to line this thing back up. But if I turn that around, that may not line up quite right. So it's easier to. Oops. I just barely tighten it up so it'll hold, and I'll go ahead and put this stale center in there, and line this up, and I can tighten this down. Again, I'll go ahead and do some of the finish up my shape here. The nice thing about turning these little butt bases is they only take a few minutes to turn. It's a great chance to practice making shapes without going through the whole hollowing process. First time I turned on this lathe, I try to stop it. You can do that with my little lathe, but this thing slows down on the power, so I try to avoid grabbing the hold of that wheel. Try to stop this thing.
What speed do you have that set at?
I have no idea. But I will tell you the formula. The RPM times the diameter should be between 6 and 8,000. This is roughly 2.5 inches, so you can run this pretty fast. Now that's when things are reasonably balanced. If you have a chunk of wood that's got 10 inches on one side, 2 on the other, that formula probably is not going to work. So just use common sense. But that works pretty good. The smaller the work, the faster you can turn it. And this thing doesn't really have a speed indicator. It's got some numbers up here, but I have no idea what they mean. What does it say, 12,000 or something like that?
96.
96, and I'm not turning that fast.
96.40.
Huh?
96.40.
Yeah, nobody knows what that means. I don't think it's running that fast. I'm running it in a high speed, and the fastest it'll go is 3,000. So I'm probably running around 2,500. But you want to be careful if you you can get carried away with the speed. So be kind of careful and be smart about it. Thanks. It's an advantage to having a wood floor in your shop because generally they land point first. Then you gotta go sharpen. Now, the grain's going in this direction. I'm gonna cut into it this way. Technically, I'm cutting against the grain. I really should be cutting from the center out, but I haven't got my hole drilled in there yet, so. I'm gonna try to clean this up. Turn this down, see what that looks like. That won't be too bad. The rim here is not real clean, but. Okay, now I'm going to drill a hole in there with my gouge. And this is one of the few times that you need to be right on the money with the tool head. So that the cutting tip is right on the center. You got a longer one, 3/8 gouge. No, there's a. Now the one thing you want to be careful of is that you don't drill further than that the hole comes out the bottom. And I don't know, but somebody told me once that the reason Gene puts fancy bottoms on this, that he went through a bowl years ago and he's promised never to do that again, but he covers it up anyway. Is that true, Gene? Okay.
Years ago, can everybody hear me? Yeah. Years ago, when Pete was giving a demonstration, somebody hollered at him and said, "Pete, you need
Okay, now I'm gonna slowly cut this from the center out. And put a little flare in there. See, that's a reasonably clean hole. Now, you know, by bringing it out, you're cutting with the grain like you're really supposed to. I didn't bring it, but I've got a real long, narrow tool that I use. It's got a sharp edge on one side. I stick in and I drag it out. But, you know, just a regular spindle gouger does that just fine. Just have to be a little patient. Thank you, Gene. So we didn't pay the light bill. This come by. It shut itself off. Now really take your time and you get a nice, you know, nice flowing shape. Now, one of the things when you're sanding a really soft wood like this aspen is if you put your hand behind the sandpaper, you're gonna sand the soft spots away really quick. And there's some really soft spots in this. So I let the sandpaper just float on there. And there's less danger you flattening out getting flat spots in there. Yeah, it's a relatively inexpensive wood. I think it's $20 to buy a permit. You can cut up to 2 cords, which is a lot of wood. But don't go to Utah get your aspen. They have terrible aspen. I got a buddy in Salt Lake City called me and says, "Hey, send me some aspen." Well, you guys have aspen? Yeah, but it's not like that aspen you guys do. It seems to have a lot more color in it here. Anyway, you get the idea how to sand this. Okay, now I won't finish bother sanding this, but make sure that you're done with it, sand it. Then again, put that finish on it. Then to part that off, I use a really thin parting tool. And it's been ground on the regular grind down here. Then on the front, I've got an angled grind to my tip. I don't know if that thing will pick that up or not. So there's this right-hand side will travel down in there, and it gives you a cleaner cut. And you still got an R marked on this one. Oops, I didn't go through. But again, like I say, I would put a finish on it, the Lanka sanding sealer, then put 4 or 5 coats of oil on it afterwards. you know.
How would you turn that around and rechuck it to finish that?
I wouldn't,
You just don't.
not on a weed pot. You're gonna get $10, $15 for that thing. It's not worth it. What you can do, if you wanna do this, get a drill and a chuck and drill a hole in there. And then turn around, put that chuck in there and then slide it onto that drill bit. Cause that's the same size as the hole that's in there. You could do that. But like I say, it's, if you're gonna sell those things, you know, there's a lot of extra time to.
Well, the tubes are like 3/4,
Huh?
so you can put a dowel in the chuck.
You could put a dowel in there or whatever, you know, to flip it around and finish it up. But, you know, if you're just gonna do that, just sand them, hand sand them, it'd be just as easy. Okay, we're gonna skip the, since it's almost 9 o'clock, we're gonna skip the pen, because I think probably most everybody can do the pen. But we're gonna make the curly fries. Did you bring your truck, your tools?
No, here's yours.
I was gonna use this tool, but.
Oh, no.
Now, the one thing I didn't bring a fryer, because I didn't think they'd probably want that, want a fryer down there.
You always do this on somebody else's slate, that's what you.
No, we're not gonna do anything bad to this lady at all. Where's my tail sander? Another tail sander. Oh, right here it is.
Got it?
Yeah.
Here's your big drive center.
Yeah, it should be in the top of that lid there. Okay. Now, this is just, I was told it was supposed to use Idaho potatoes, but they didn't mark where they came from. So these could be Texas potatoes, I don't know. And if they are, that's probably not gonna work.
Which way's the grain running?
Yes.
Better make sure the speed's turned down.
Wham.
You want fries, not mash.
Yeah.
Did you wash that before you came, Pete?
Yes, I did. I really, honestly, I did. I went upstairs and washed them. Because Rick said he didn't want
Dirty potatoes.
dirty potatoes. If you do this, it's best that if you use somebody else's tools. Lee and I and Lee Carter and I and Rick went up to Montana, was it 2 years ago? And so Lee says he was gonna make curly fries. And he asked him if he had a bowl gouge. He says, oh yeah, so he hands it to him. He didn't realize what he was gonna do.
It's his bowl gouge.
This is mine, yes.
You cover up everything, Pete.
Oh no, it isn't really that bad. Okay, now, you know, if you get good Idaho potatoes, they're usually a little more round, but these I think came from New Mexico. You gotta get a little closer. That's pretty good.
Oh.
Are they good?
They're delicious.
You want another one?
Good job, Pete.
Hi. Any questions? Not about potatoes either, I don't know nothing about potatoes. All I know is they grow on the ground.
The winner of the Turning Challenge tonight was Kim Commodore. There is your rocker gift certificate.
Mark Ray or Nick Bove here? They signed out stuff from the library and didn't pick it up. Pete, question. Who knows Nick Bove or Mark Ray?
Okay, hold on a minute there, we got some questions.
You said you don't get your paint thinner from, such as Home Depot, or you
Right,
get
you
from
could
a
use a
paint
good
store?
quality brand like Parks or somebody like that. What you don't want is, you don't want some cheap, 99 cents a gallon paint thing. You know, I mean, you want a good brand
Hey,
name.
thanks, Pete.
Have you ever used the hot oil finish on
The what?
Have you ever used the hot oil finish on
Yes.